Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Buying a car in Carvana was so easy. I was able to finance it through them.
Whoa, wait, you mean finance?
Yeah, finance. Got pre-qualified for a Carvana auto loan, entered my terms, and shot from thousands of great car options, all within my budget.
That's cool that financing through Carvana was so easy.
Financed. Done. And I get to pick up my car from their Carvana vending machine tomorrow.
Financed.
Right, that's what I said.
You can spend time trying to pronounce financing, or you can actually finance and buy your car today on
Carvana.
Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site that covers the Arizona Cardinals. Episode 697, as my co-host who is with me for this show, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. We get to the first of our hopefully three shows as we look back at the Cardinals 27-22. Week 2 victory over the Carolina Panthers, a game that looked like it would be much easier than it was, became interesting, became wild, and became about anything that could have gone wrong with a 24-point lead did, but in the end, they come away with the win, and that's what we're here to talk about, Seth. Why don't we, I was there as a fan. The first time I've been to a Cardinals regular season game as a fan since the 90s. I went to preseason game as a fan back in 2009, but being in the stands was kind of wild. It was fun, but it was an interesting vibe at the stadium because there was the high of the early score and lead, and then as the game got a little more boring and second half rolls around, some people start leaving. Panthers fans were leaving, and there really wasn't a lot about an energy in the stadium, but that's typical for when you get a slow game that's kind of a blowout. And then it got crazy at the end. For you, what were kind of your just initial reactions to watching the game, on TV? How did it kind of feel from there?
It felt like they just completely pulled their foot off the gas in terms of both sides of the ball. I was going back and I was kind of watching and looking at how they did things, and it was interesting to see how aggressive they were early in the game, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, doing, showing different things, showing different blitz packages, bringing different pressures, and then they kind of just played it straight up right in the fourth quarter, and you're going, why? Why aren't you being aggressive? And so, those things all kind of became the issue and why they got to the point where they did, where it's just they were unable to really close out a game that should have been easily closed out.
Yeah, and one thing what we want to talk about is what went right, what went wrong. We got some injuries to talk about, and I'll dare to say that the injury situation perhaps was a reason why they handled things a little bit differently late. But let's not start with that. Let's start with what went right, because there were things that went right, and I think the very first thing was the fast start. I mean, what did we get to see? We got to see Josh Sweat get a sack early, caused the touchdown that Zaven Collins scored. We got 2 sacks from Calais Campbell, and Dalvin Tomlinson looked better. It looked like they're getting a game under their belt. The conditioning was better, but they got impact from impact guys.
They did, especially early. You saw just some different things that we hadn't seen. I mean, they were getting pressures on the defense side of the ball. You saw a really balanced and effective offense, and they put themselves in a position again to be successful. And then you had some of the same basically, shooting yourself in the foot, right? Like you look at, you come out, you score right immediately, and it's Josh Sweat with a sack. Zaven Collins recovers and returns it for a touchdown. That's, basically the most ideal start you can think of, right? And then they come out their second defensive effort, and they give up some yards that time, 27 yards. Kind of a foreshadowing of things to come, right? 27 yards in 7 plays is actually kind of a weird thing, but they had again, some of these things where they shot themselves in the foot, and then they get the interception from Baron Browning, and they score a touchdown. We're like, all right, here we go. And then the late penalty flag comes in, right? And you've got offensive holding on Trey McBride, and it was like, Trey, you probably didn't even have to block him, right? Just kind of get in front of him, and you get the same result. Instead, you settle for a field goal because you get the kind of Drew Petzing waving the white flag situation, and then you kind of just follow it along, right? You've got little things on every drive that just seem like little miscues, and so then it becomes, are they able to overcome those things? And in the first half they were to a really, really effective level, getting out to a 20-3 lead. And then they had that great drive to start the second half. I don't think we can say enough about how good that drive was, right? They get the kickoff, they go 71 yards in 9 plays, over 5.5 minutes of game time, and score another touchdown. They get up 27-3. And think about even that drive, Jess. You had the Paris Johnson ineligible man downfield penalty, right? You had some plays that didn't work out the way you'd want them to, but they were just able to kind of continue to get guys the ball and get them in good positions. And then it just seemed like, all right, we're gonna pull back, we're gonna take our foot off the gas. And don't get me wrong, Carolina has some talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but they were getting beat not by guys like T. McMillan, right? It was guys like Tommy Tremble and Mitchell Evans. Like, these guys are beating you, and you're just like, what is happening right now?
Yeah. I thought other things of the good were, like, there were like Trey McBride, aside from the one penalty, McBride did his thing.
He continues to just be, and I know people are going to harp on the penalty when it comes to, like,
he went out of his mind too, that he got flagged on that. That's the wild thing about that. I'm like, that was but I'm like, he was, maybe there was something else to that, but it felt like, even from my spot in the stands, I was like, that was definitely a hold, Trey. What are you going crazy about?
Yeah, I thought it was close. I think it was more where he hit him than, like, it was just an obvious penalty, because he caught him on the shoulder pad and kind of redirected him in a negative way.
It was the touchdown to Michael Wilson was a great play.
And by the way, isn't it interesting? And I know the one didn't count as we talk about that, right? But isn't it interesting that they had 2 design plays for Michael Wilson in the red zone? In the goal to go zone, not even the red zone, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. Although like the touchdown play, it was more of Wilson feeling confident the ball was going to come his way. I heard his post-game interview afterwards, and I think that's the first read is that play when he did that. Higgins had a couple of, it was nice to see Higgins get things going. But other than that, I mean, for a game in which they were up 27-3, doesn't it feel like there wasn't a ton of positives? I will say this, and it continues to be for the injuries, is that Denzel Burke did have some struggles, but overall, Burke didn't play poorly, which was really good to see. And foreshadowing, we might be looking at a trio of cornerbacks. We might be looking at 3 starters and being Denzel Burke, Keitrell Clark, and Elijah Jones this week. But Burke playing relatively well, considering the circumstances, was really good, because losing Max was that didn't feel good. So I'm gonna put the Denzel playing relatively well in the positives.
I would agree with you, and so you look at it, and this was a effort that at times waned, but for the most part, you saw a lot of positives. There's a lot of like good that you can take from this game. It's just that the way things have ended the previous 2 games, it makes people go, is this a good team? And quite frankly, I think that's a fair question just based off how they've played, right?
Yes, absolutely. So with that, coming up next on the Res of Sierra podcast of SR Cardinals Talk on the Web, let's move to what went wrong. That's coming next on Res of Sierra.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
We all know that owning a small business means you wear many hats, but sometimes you really need an extra pair of hands. Upwork is how good companies find great and trusted freelance talent. With more than 2 decades of experience, with the simple and ambitious goal of pioneering a better way of working, companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in staffing key projects and initiatives. They access a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web dev, marketing, and more. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, and get help drafting a job post or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them and take your business to the next level. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com.
Power up fall projects with Ego at Lowe's. Every tool delivers power beyond belief. So whether it's leaves, limbs, or lawn cleanup, count on Ego to deliver the power, performance, and innovation you need. And now for a limited time, save up to $60 on select blowers, chainsaws, and pole saws. Shop Ego today at Lowe's. Offers valid through 10/1 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast. It's our Cardinals Talk. The Cardinals beat the Carolina Panthers 27-22. Shouldn't have been that interesting. They went up 27-3 after the first possession of the second half. And from there, it got super interesting. And so what went wrong? And people have been dumping on Kyler Murray, and that's fair for the position. But let us consider that I don't think Kyler Murray is what went wrong. There was a play, and you said it yourself, is that, Murray had one mistake the entire game. He played a very good game, and then when he tried to throw the ball away, that led to the interception when they could have, at worst, been up 30-9. It was 9 plays, 76 yards, touchdown in the second half. 9 plays, 70 yards, he gets picked off. And then the one drive that everyone talks about when they should have been able to run out the clock, when they should have gotten into their 4-minute offense, they go 3 plays, they go 3 and out and have to punt. And that's when all the interest. But, you could say that Kyler Murray went wrong, but you realize he didn't get the ball again after that.
Yeah, and it's something that it's really easy to talk about, but it's harder to actually watch, right? And so one of the things that I talked about quite a bit was, the interception was, I've talked about it off there.
The worst case scenario.
Right. It wasn't even a terrible decision. He was trying to throw the ball away. He just got hit, and it is what it is. But they got the ball with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and that pick happened with under 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter on the Carolina 12. So the Cardinals went 9 plays, 60 yards, held the ball for over 6.5 minutes, and basically punted to the 12, right?
Yeah.
And their defense gave up 14 plays for 88 yards and got the Carolina Panthers offense in a singular third down before they got into the red zone. 1 third down. Like, that's the type of stuff that that's why I said, you look at that play sequence, right? Like 7 yards to Jatavion Sanders, 5 yards to Tet McMillan, 9 yards to Tommy Tremble, a 6-yard run by Chuba Hubbard, passing complete, pass complete. You got a defensive holding, pass complete to Hunter Renfrow, a pass complete to Bryson Tremaine, like pass complete to Chuba Hubbard. How do you allow this offense to just, chunk plays? And that was, again, I know Max Melton was out, but that was with Will Johnson, Garrett Williams still on the field. And you just, you look at that's just bad defense. Genuinely.
Look at their possessions in the second half. So the Cardinals scored the touchdown. So they had the 5.5 minute drive where they went up 27-3. But here are the next 3 consecutive drives for the Panthers that the defense gave up. 3 consecutive drives for touchdowns. Okay. 14 plays, 76 yards, more than 7 minutes. Touchdown. Then the interception happens, 14 plays, 93 yards, or 14 plays, 88 yards, 5.5 minutes off the clock, touchdown. They go 3 and out, then it's 12 plays, 76 yards, touchdown. And then the onside kick, and they get them. And it took, honestly, it took everything out. The comic, it was comical with the things on the stretch, but, the defense, you take the Kyler interception away. Kyler played a good game, and there were some good things about the offense, but kind of, if you look at it this way, kind of the 2 things that the Cardinals were kind of planning on this year, which was a dominant run game and a much improved defense. They got almost nothing from the run game, and their defense, just whether it was simply, we're just going to let you take your time down the field. Maybe that was the strategy, was rather than, try and get another big play and get a defensive score, force a turnover like that, which, by the way, the start of that game, it looked like Bryce Young's career was headed to the toilet, because in 5 quarters, 5 turnovers, because he had 2 interceptions and a fumble in the first game. He had the fumble, the strip fumble, and then the interception. So it was looking like Bryce Young might be hitting Bustville. And then he ends up throwing 3 touchdown passes over 300 yards. Honestly, and I will say this, Bryce Young in the second half did really well. And he played poised. He just took what was but the defense was supposed to be better. Like, the defense, 14 plays, 12 plays. That's not the defense that this team spent lots of money on. That's not how that defense is supposed to play.
Well, and like I said, it's interesting how, because I think I texted you guys the stats, right? It's interesting how they've basically gone about not coming after the quarterback. And part of it is they just aren't bringing any pressure. And what I mean by that is they're content to drop 7, bring 4, and see what happens. And so you and I were having this discussion. Is this hey, we're playing bad teams, let's do this right now to see what we can figure out? Like, that's the only thing I can think, right? Like, because if you're getting picked apart by Spencer Rattler, who had a good game against San Francisco as well, so we should mention that before we talk about San Francisco on Thursday, but he had a good game against San Francisco, and then Bryce Young in the second half, like, adjust. But maybe they're just like, no, we're 27-3, man. Like, we're not worried about it. We're not going to give up 24 points and a half. And they didn't, so they're right. But also, did it have to be that close? Right? Like,
No, it didn't. It didn't.
And so that's kind of what my question is.
Well, and that, even at the 3 and out, that 3 and out that they had that led to that, it looked good to start, because on the first play, Connor goes for 7 yards, but then he goes for a -3, and then he had the throw down the field, that he and Wilson were on the same page. Kyler goes deep, Wilson breaks off the route. So that was just, what can you say? Like, was that Kyler's fault? Was that but that negative play, because it was 2nd and 3. It should have been 2nd and 3. They should have been, you would have figured that with the way that they run the ball, that they would be able to 2nd and 3, maybe 3rd and 1, pick up the first down. Honestly, if they get 1 first down on that drive, it's not nearly that. Then it just looks frantic instead of crazy. Like, you get the crazy garbage time, but there's never like any hope. But yeah, that was the other thing. So the defense is bad. The defense didn't show anything. And I will say this, last year, the Cardinals had a really, really low blitz rate until like the second half of the season. And then they turned it up, especially on 3rd down. It was very interesting how they go about that. Like, it's like, we're going to do things early, and maybe it was simply that. So maybe it was just the fact they just wanted to take it easy, sit back in basic coverage and let them dink and run the clock out, and just rely on the offense to chew clock. And that one drive just didn't work. And so the defense and run the ball has been a bad defense. And guess what? The run game, they got 146 yards against New Orleans, but the running backs are averaging like less than 3 yards, aside from Benson's 52-yarder. Like, Connor's averaging, what is he, about 3 yards a carry this year, and hasn't
3.2. Yeah,
he's not looked dominant for whatever reason, whether it's the magic 3-0 and now you can't run the ball, or he hasn't gotten his legs under him yet, or simply defenses are playing the run better because what was it? I don't know who was. I think it was Blake that showed us in the group text that there's a trend around the league that the inside run is being defended much better this year, and apparently offenses have not adjusted to that.
Right, and it's really interesting to look at because you have, the bulk numbers look fine, right? 228 yards in 2 games, 4.7 yards per attempt. There's a touchdown in there. Averaging 114 yards, per game. All that seems great, right? But there's 2 things to it. One, obviously Murray, but 2, 82 of your 228 yards are on 2 carries. So without and I'm always one of those people that says you can't take away but without those 2 carries, you're averaging 3.1 yards per carry. 3.1, Jess, for a team that's supposed to be one of the best run teams in the NFL. And
at least there's the fact that the interior offensive line not looking good. Looking good so far.
Well, and there's some stats that are interesting, right? I think when you look at some different things, I think the first thing that you look at is what's Kyle Odegaard posted it, and I'm trying to find it so I get it correct. But I think the passing game is at top 10 in EPA, so expected points per attempt, right? Which is really good. But it also talks about efficiency. But they're 30th, not 13th, 30th in rushing EPA, which if we all had to vote before the season, right? Like after 2 games, what would be 10th and what would be 30th offensively, we'd go, okay, they're 10th in rushing and 30th in passing. That, the passing games getting off to, but no, they're super efficient when they do drop back and throw the ball. So that begged the question, right? Like, okay, well, how often are they throwing the ball? Well, they're 26th in passing attempts, Jess. 26th. So you're really efficient doing it. You just don't do it. And here's the other crazy thing. They have had the most passes thrown against them in the NFL. In 2 games, they have 101 passes thrown against them. 101, Jess. But
that's wild, and that makes sense because the
Panthers they're winning, right? They're winning. But here's the wilder stat, Jess. They have 37 less plays run than their opponents, and offensive, defensive plays. That doesn't include specials, all that stuff. Offensive and defensive plays. They only have 98 yards difference in total yards. So their opponents, while still having 37 more plays, have only gained 98 more yards than them, which is absurd to think. But they don't get
completely anomalous. It doesn't make sense. Right. It doesn't. None of that makes any sense. You're like, oh, well, that's good. That means they got a good defense. But then you look at what they did against the Panthers. Like, that's not a good defense.
Well, they're playing the ultimate bend don't break, right? Like their average drive. This is the craziest thing. The average drive. The Cardinals hold the ball more when they have the ball, 3.3 or 3 minutes and 30 seconds to under 3 minutes, which is really, really good. But they have less plays, 6.7 to 7.5, and they have the same exact yardage. Like this 33.5 yards per drive, 33, they're giving up 33.4 yards per drive. And it's like, wait, what? Like, so these teams are getting a full play extra per drive, but they're getting the same amount of yardage. So it's just like, and that's what I mean. I think I read somewhere they're third in penalties against so far on the defense.
Yeah, they've been bad so far, penalties wise.
And so that's what all that is, Jess, is you just get extra plays because those plays don't count. So now you have to start again, right? So like if it's 3rd and 5 and you get another innocuous, illegal touch or whatever they call
illegal contact.
Illegal contact. Thank you. You go, oh crap. All right, well, let's start again. So now they get 3 plays, and so that's what's happening so often. And so,
the perfect example of that is they got the 4th downs, even got the sack, strip fumble, and you're like, "Yay, turnover and downs, we won!" Oh, there was defensive holding,
right? And so it's just little stuff, man. And so that's the thing. It's not even that the defense is necessarily playing badly. It's just that they don't get stops in the second half.
Yeah. Oh. So we'll see. Maybe we'll see that the game plan will change against.
Well, and that's kind of
better teams. I don't know
exactly. That's kind of what I'm thinking, right? Like it's got to. I mean, they've got to change that overall. Again, but they got to run the ball better. I mean, all of this is to say, no matter what, they have to run the ball better. I mean, that's just it.
Coming up next on the Rise of Zero podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk Web. Let's move on and let's talk about the injuries because goodness, that cornerback room. That's coming next on Rise of Zero.
Valspar Ultra starts at just $29.98 a gallon. So we've got you covered when your daughter wants to paint her room again. After last year's masterpiece of a unicorn mural.
Dad, please.
Or when you realize that maybe you went too hard on the grayish.
I miss color.
Or when you were sure you wanted a home gym, but your elliptical is currently hanging your laundry.
What about a home office?
Shop everything you need for your next phase with Valspar. Available at Lowe's. Price varies by Shein.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
We're back on the Rise Up Seaward podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the web. Now we get to talk about some injuries because the Cardinals lost 3 starting cornerbacks during the game. And this is after they already lost Sean Murphy-Bunting for the year. They already lost Star Thomas for the year. And at least initially, based on what we saw, 2 of them look like they could be severe. And then they lose a defensive lineman. Again, the two positions where they really tried to keep adding players, and they cannot, for the life of them, stay healthy. So already we know when it comes to the cornerback room, Sean Murphy-Bunting was lost for the year during the offseason. Star Thomas lost for the year in training camp, but they've drafted a gazillion cornerbacks. And so you're like, okay, we've got this. Will Johnson's going to play. That's going to be good. Garrett Williams, fine there. They drafted Max Milton last year. Defensive line as well. You're like, Justin Jones got injured last year. Bilal Nichols. Then Walter Nolan gets hurt. Justin Jones gets hurt again. Now LJ Collier's hurt. And we don't know what the situation is with that. So they lost all 3 of their starting cornerbacks. And wouldn't you say, so Garrett Williams went down late. If that's an ACL, man, that just that's terrible timing. Max looked pretty bad as well, but in a way that isn't maybe season ending, but maybe several weeks. And then then we had to scare with Will Johnson. Turned out like just it was the air get knocked out of him, but apparently hurt his groin at the end of the game. And then there's his Instagram post, keeping the faith. I'm like, oh, what is this? I don't know, man. Are the Cardinals cursed?
Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. It's the NFL, and it's a violent sport. Again, I hate comparing and things like that, but a kid I've coached for years literally snapped his lower leg in half in our game last week. Like, just,
oh my gosh.
A 14-year-old and just like snapped his lower leg, and it's one of those things that you don't even know how to explain it. And we're standing there as coaches and going like, why do we do this, right? Like, it's just so difficult, and because it is so violent and there's so much going on in the games, and so we'll just see where it goes to. I will say this, there's they dropped their depth chart. Nothing. I mean.
No, and I will say this: the Cardinals are ridiculous when it comes to injury. They're ridiculous. They are ridiculous.
Yeah,
when
they could even take somebody's credentials away if you question it too much.
Jeez.
Not to bring up
my
goodness. Sorry.
But the fact of the matter is, like, when Joe Burrow got hurt later that day, we knew that he was going to miss at least 3 months. Like, we knew other injuries. Oh, it's going to cost him the season. He's going to be out for at least 2 months. But the Cardinals, and I will say this, they're purposely doing this for whatever reason, because, like, I put out the tweet, like, either they have the worst medical staff where I don't know what's wrong, and they do things, they have the worst facilities, the worst communication, or they just don't want to say anything for whatever reason. It just doesn't make sense, because I know for a fact that most of the time with the trainers that they have and the doctors that they have is they know more or less in the moment what type of injury it is. And they know that what the worst case is, and sometimes they find out that it isn't as bad as it looked, but they'll know based on the type of the way it happened what the likely injury is. But to say, Jonathan Gannon, the media after I don't know anything, and to say, oh, we'll know later in the week. What do you mean you'll know later in the week? You might know what roster moves you're going to do later in the week, but they know 100% whether these moves are, and they time it in a way so that 3 p.m. on Monday, he's like, oh, we'll find out later. He doesn't talk to the media till Wednesday before practice, and then they're gonna make their roster move announcements. But and to what end? To what end? Honestly.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, if guys are down for any extended period of time, it makes it really difficult to figure out what they're going to do. That being said, it's just, with this organization, there's really nothing that we can even talk about, because they're so secretive about injuries that there's, we can talk about it, but we'll really have no clarification until a move is actually made, right? Like, we won't even know the extent of it unless somebody goes on IR.
Right. And then that's from the looks of it. Like, if you're looking at, like, you fear that Melton and William are both done for the year. You fear that, just the way they reacted coming off the field. And then on top of that, LJ Collier injures his knee as well. Now, granted, he's depth. He's the back of the depth chart in terms of the defensive line room. And so, you could bring up an Elijah Simmons or an Anthony Goodlow or someone like that. But it's just like, and because they're not going to be able to get Justin Jones back for, well, who knows how long he'll be out. We don't know that. Walter Nolan is going to have to miss at least 2 more games, and so you're just like, can we just not? Can we just not? Like,
right, exactly.
At the corner, at the positions where they were loaded, but they weren't loaded anymore, and they're even less loaded. It's just a struggle. Not that we need anybody else to get hurt instead. It just feels like the Cardinals have they just can't. They can't not. It's just the defensive. They don't know how to keep healthy defensive linemen. And apparently this year is the year for all the cornerbacks to get hurt. So
right, exactly.
That's who knows. So coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Mr. Cardinals talking about. Let's talk about one last little bit. We talked a little already, but let's talk about Murray, Harrison, and the run game. That's coming next on Rise of Sea Red. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, Mr. Cardinals talk on the web. Murray, Harrison, and the run game. We talked about that a little bit, but let's go with Harrison because people are really starting to get annoyed at Harrison's play. Harrison's usually he only had 2 catches for 27 yards. He did draw a big 58-yard or whatever it ended up being pass interference pump penalty. So that, and they don't count in the stats. But that was a huge play. And it was a 38-yard pass interference play. So in the end, it ended up being 65 yards of stuff. He did have a drop. That was a bad drop there on that sideline. And then they didn't connect in the end zone. But people are saying, 5 targets isn't enough. I mean, how many targets is the right amount? And how much of the quiet game Harrison had was on Harrison, and how much was on his usage?
I mean, it's a combination, and I think there's a lot of stuff that should be discussed in terms of understanding game flow and things of that nature. But the one thing that I would say, people know my take on this. I think they've got to get him more manufactured touches, not to the extent of like what the BS we were kind of seeing at the end of Fitz's career, right? Where it's just like, all right, here's a 2-yard loss on the first play of the game, so they can get the Fitz catch out of the way, right? But like, get him more involved. I mean, I will say you look at the offense. The 4th play from scrimmage went to him, right? And it was a PI that got him down to the 5, and then the very next play went to him, and he did what you and I would consider a poor job, right? Trying to come back and make a play on the ball, but and people look at that and go, well, you got to get him more involved. It's like, well, they got the ball to him twice in the first quarter. One, he got PI'd. The other, there was something that you probably wanted to see more from him out of that, right? And then was the drop in the second quarter? Was it like early in the second quarter? I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember I remember where it was, but I don't remember at what point in the game it was. But yeah, it was. But that was like, oh my gosh, Marv. Oh my gosh, you can't do that. Although, like, in fairness, we don't get to see Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors has had a couple of egregious drops too.
But here's my thing on all of that, and I don't disagree. But like, all right, so people are, again, they have their opinions, and you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Or 10. So they go to Marv 3 times in the first 10 plays. And he has, I don't want to say lazy, because I'm not trying to describe it as lazy, but like, an interesting effort on a ball in the end zone and a drop. Like, not making excuses, but also what quarterback / play caller is like, hey, we got to get back to this guy immediately, right? Like, and again, I'm not saying right or wrong, but that's just a reality, right? Like if you get 30% of the targets in the first 10 plays and you make 0 plays,
they're going to Elijah Higgins now.
Yeah, they're going to start looking at in other, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the reality of the game.
Run game. Is this a result?
I don't even know where to start.
Is this a result of the running backs? Is it missing Will Hernandez? Is it guard play? Evan Brown has been noticeably worse than a year ago when he was solid last year. Not been good so far. Isaiah Adams, how much of it is the backs? How much of it is the blocking? And how much is just defensive being better?
I don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to run blocking. I don't know if that's missing Clayton Adams. I don't know if that's Justin Fry. I don't know what aspect of the game that is, but there is an issue.
I have it's suddenly the linemen don't know how to block because Adams not here. Like, is that what it is? I'm like, they miss Clayton Adams, but do they really? Like, what does it? Are they teaching different things? Because I can't imagine they're teaching different things.
Right. And you look at it, Yelda Froholt's doing okay. But after that, Harris is even struggling as a run blocker. Evan Brown and Isaiah Adams are both struggling, and Jonah Williams struggling. So it's like you've got 4 of your 5 offensive linemen not blocking well in the run game. Makes it really difficult to run the ball, right?
Yeah. And then, I can't complain about how Murray's played.
I've said this. All the stats tell the same story. It's not going to win you a game. It's not going to lose you a game. It's going to keep you in the game and give you a chance to, be there at the end. But also, the thing I would say that needs to improve more than anything at this juncture would be that you'd like to see a killer instinct of like that play he made to get them inside the red zone. Is Lamar maybe the only other player that can make that play? Maybe. And don't get me wrong, Lamar is the best quarterback in the NFL right now, but does anybody else make that play? I genuinely don't know.
No, that's tough. He's so special when he runs, especially when he's like, I'm going to, because you can tell there's a difference in the ways he runs, because sometimes we know how fast he is. And there are very few times we've seen him actually cut loose on his speed, because he's running carefully, more shiftily. And sometimes I just wish he would that he would just cut loose and run past someone, but he is so contact averse.
Yeah.
Which understandably, he's not a big dude. He's 5'10", 210. That is not much compared to 6'3", 240. But he's been, and isn't it? It almost feels like he's just doing what he's asked to do. It's almost the exact opposite. It's kind of the opposite of when it was Cliff Kingsbury, right? Because Kingsbury is like, Kyler, do your thing. And Kyler's doing, I'm doing what I'm asked. I'm asked to do this, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to be coachable. I'm going to do this. But you also, it feels like we get a little bit less of that take over, because we know that Kyler can take over a game. And it feels like, we just need a little more of that. But I think it's just falling within the scheme.
Right. And here's, again, I've said this. I just feel like the scheme itself has been insanely vanilla to start the season, just like the defense, right? Like, think about this. They were up 27-3 and they kind of just posted. And again, they had a 9-play, 60-yard, 6.5-minute drive. You know, and people are like, oh, you can't make that play. You go up 30-3. Like, there's genuinely no difference.
Right. Right.
Okay, so you're up 27. So they still have to get 3 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions. By the way, if they don't get all of their 2-point conversions, then they have to get 4 touchdowns. So what's like, that's how I look at it. So
Yeah.
Again, I just go back to the reality of like the defense in that situation has to get off the field. They have to find a way to not give up 40 plays and over 200 yards in 3 drives. Like, especially when the
one stop and 2 first downs on offense, and this game's a blowout.
Well, and that's the thing. People are like, oh, the defense was on. I'm like, yeah, the defense was on the field because of the defense. I mean,
the defense, it wasn't. Yeah, there was the one bad drive. They went 3 and out, and then had a couple of, it was the minus play to the Connor, and then the bad route by Wilson, and then after that, they didn't even get the ball back. They didn't get the ball back after that.
Right, but before that, that's what I'm saying is like they ran 12 minutes of game time in the second half off the clock and gained 160 plus yards or 130 plus yards. Excuse me. Like, the defense shouldn't have been gassed, but they gave up a 12 play and a 14 play drive back to back. So they were gassed because they gassed themselves. That's, it's just, that's what I said. It is what it is. Like, they have to finish games on both sides of the ball. But at the same time, like, let's not excuse the defense giving up 26 plays for 170 yards in 2 series. Like, come on. Like, you gotta do something, right?
Yeah. And with that, let us wrap this up. That'll wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Here podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the Web. My hope, I haven't talked to him yet, but we can get Kyle Madsen on to do the opponent preview. Seth and I will be back later this week. And with that, that's Seth Cox. I'm Just Root. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms, so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.
Rise